What's going on YouTube? My name is Marcus, aka Apostle, and today we are going to talk about 7 things that you need to know before playing Spellbreak. Before we get into that though, I just want to let you guys know that I live stream pretty much every day, so if you guys are interested in that, be sure to check it out down in the description below. I am not playing Spellbreak right now because it's down until early March, but I am playing some other games, so feel free to come in, say what's up. If you have more questions about Spellbreak, I'm completely open to you guys coming in and asking them, so yeah, just check that out. Anyways, let's get into exactly what you need to know before getting into Spellbreak. In Spellbreak, the weapon of choice is called the Gauntlet. What these gauntlets allow you to do is control a specific element like fire, frost, or toxic, and use those to your advantage in a fight. Each gauntlet is bound to your right and left click depending on which hand you're wearing the gauntlet on. So if you're wearing a gauntlet on your left hand, you're going to left click. If you're wearing a different gauntlet on your right hand, you're going to right click to use that primary attack. The rarities of these gauntlets can range from common to legendary, but legendaries can only be found inside the mana vaults, which look like this. Alongside each gauntlet's primary attack, they also have a secondary skill called a sorcery. Most sorceries tend to be AoE spells which affect a larger area of the battlefield than your primary attack, and once you use this sorcery, it goes on cooldown before you can use it again, so you can't just spam it all the time. Unlike most games where you shoot and that's the end of it, in Spellbreak, once you cast the spell, that's just the beginning. This is because elements can combine. So if you take 2 elements, let's say fire and toxic, you can combine them for a different effect. If you combine toxic and fire, it's called dragon fire. What this does is up the damage of your spell, but it burns out really quickly. There are a crazy amount of combinations in Spellbreak, so be sure to play around with each element and see what you can find. Basically anything that's still on the battlefield can be altered by using another spell or sorcery. And you can even get different combinations just by switching using a spell's sorcery versus its primary attack. For instance, if you cast wind at fire, it'll just put the fire out, but if you throw a tornado on top of it, the tornado will combine with the fire and create a fire tornado. You want to keep in mind that casting your spells is not free. Like I said before, for sorceries, when you cast them, they each have a cooldown, but also primary attacks use mana. Mana is basically ammo and is represented by this bar right here. Once you completely run out of mana, you'll have to recharge. If you have a higher rarity gauntlet, it'll actually allow you to cast more by using less mana, which gives you more shots before you're forced to recharge. You can also prevent recharging by just not firing for a second. Your mana will automatically refill when your gauntlet isn't being fired. Mana is also used when you levitate, so you want to be careful balancing your attacks versus your levitations. Usually you want to levitate as little as possible. Now let's move on to the items. There are 3 item types in Spellbreak: boots, belts, and amulets. Each of these item types has a specific attribute that they increase. Boots increase run speed, belts increase your maximum armor, and amulets increase the size of your mana pool. It's worth noting that even with an increased mana pool, your levitate uses a percent, so you can only levitate a specific amount of time no matter how much mana you have. Items, just like gauntlets, have rarities of their own. The higher rarity of the item, the more benefit you're going to get out of it. So, for instance, a gray amulet doesn't increase your mana by nearly as much as if you find a gold amulet. Also, once you hit rare rarity, the blue one, you also get an extra benefit from that item. For instance, if you pick up this amulet, it not only increases your mana pool, but it also shortens your time between casts. And if you pick up this belt, it increases your maximum rune charges. That brings us to our next topic, runes. Runes are items that you find in the HoloLens that give you awesome abilities. Some runes can make you fly, some can rewind you in time, and some can make you invisible. Once you use your rune, it'll go on cooldown, so you'll have to wait before you can use it again. Runes can really affect your playstyle and are one of the funnest things in Spellbreak. They affect the game so much that I actually made an entire video about runes and how they work. I'm going to put a link to that down in the description below, so if you're interested in learning more about runes, be sure to check that out because it's a pretty comprehensive guide. There is something that I haven't mentioned yet that is very important. It can actually change the entire way you play and be the biggest decider of which items and gauntlets you pick to use. This is your class. As of right now, there are 6 classes: Pyromancer, Frostborn, Stone Shaper, Conduit, Tempest, and Toxicologist. Depending on which class you pick, you spawn in with a common version of that gauntlet. So if you're toxic, you spawn in with a common toxic gauntlet, and you also spawn in with the passive for that class. There are also 3 talents that go along with the passives that you get throughout the game. To earn each of these talents, all you have to do is make it to the next safe zone. As soon as you enter the new zone, you unlock your next talent. These talents tend to directly buff the corresponding gauntlet to the class that you're playing. So if you're playing Toxicologist, you're going to get benefits to your Toxic Gauntlet. Some examples of this is that if you enter your Toxic Cloud, you'll actually dash through it and go invisible, as well as the ability to throw out 3 Toxic Clouds instead of 1. You want to be careful and make sure you know which level you are at all times, because you can think you have an ability when you really don't. So for instance, you can go to enter your Toxic Cloud thinking you're going to dash through it, but you're really just going to walk in there and hurt yourself. So you gotta keep an eye on your level as you're playing the game. As of right now, you can play Spellbreak 2 ways. The first of which is the Battle Royale mode. I'm sure you all know what Battle Royale is. You drop from the sky, you pick a point to land, you loot up, and you try to be the last person or team alive. Now, I know a lot of people don't like Battle Royales, but I recommend you trying it before knocking it. The reason I say to try it is because I've been in the Spellbreak community for over a year now, and one of the main things that I hear from people who play this game is that they hate Battle Royales. But there's something about Spellbreak that's different that makes it fun. Spellbreak is just a fundamentally different game than any other BR out there. Compared to other BRs, there's much less hiding and camping. This in itself makes games much more exciting to play because you get into the action faster, and if you die, you usually haven't been looting up for 15 minutes just to lose it all in one fight. If you are just really against BR games, there is a second mode that you can play in Spellbreak. The second mode is called Clash. Clash is a 9v9 game mode with some BR aspects implemented in it. You still fall from the sky and loot, but instead of dying and the game being over, you actually respawn and land again. When you die, you keep your loot and also drop a duplicate set of your items that others can pick up. This makes getting good gear extremely easy and makes it also a lot less punishing on new players. Most Clash games are really high action since people aren't worried about dying, they're just basically running into battle constantly. If you are a new player, I recommend learning to fight in Clash, but personally I prefer the BR game mode over it. But even before learning to fight in Clash, there is another game mode that I actually recommend you try. This is the practice mode. Now, it sounds really boring, but hear me out. The practice mode spawns you on the pre-lobby island alone with every single item in the game. I highly recommend spending at least 10 minutes picking up and testing each item and gauntlet, and figuring out what works for you. Spellbreak has a lot of complexity to it, so learning the items and finding which ones feel good to you will give you a huge advantage. You can learn what will take you hours of in-game time in just a few minutes by doing this. This alone will make your learning experience in Spellbreak so much more fun. Instead of going out and testing items that you have no idea what they do, you'll actually have a little bit of a grasp and be able to understand what you're doing right and what you're doing wrong way easier. If you're gonna play Spellbreak, the practice mode is where you need to start. Another way to learn Spellbreak really quickly, you're actually already doing. Just by checking out this video, you're putting yourself ahead by a huge amount. I've got a bunch of other tutorials and gameplays that you can check out on the channel as well, that'll help you get a grasp of the game. Also, if you're into live streams, the entire Spellbreak community is really cool and is open to questions. I definitely recommend checking that out. Like I said, Spellbreak is down until early March. It's rumored that March 3rd is the day that it's coming out, but we really don't know yet. So there's not going to be anybody streaming the game until Closed Beta 2 is released. In the meantime, if you have any questions and you see that I'm streaming, feel free to come in and ask them. Honestly, Spellbreak is my favorite game right now, and I'd love to talk about it, so if you guys have any questions or discussions or just want to come in and say what's up, definitely do it. I really do hope you guys found this video helpful. If you did, be sure to like and subscribe because it really helps the channel grow. Anyways, my name is Marcus, aka Apostle, and I'll see you guys next time.